Next up, for the past 15 years, the state has offered tax incentives for filmmakers who shoot their projects here in Massachusetts. That includes a 25% payroll tax credit on productions that spend more than $50,000 in the state, plus a sales tax exemption and a 25% credit on production expenses for productions that shoot at least half their project or spend more than half their budget here. The program costs the state between $50 and $80 million a year. Since first taking effect in 2006, the credits have survived repeated attempts to eliminate them, including from Governor Charlie Baker, but they're set to expire at the end of next year. In April, the state's House of Representatives voted unanimously to make them permanent, but some in the Senate aren't so sure, including State Senator Michael Barrett, who joins me now, along with Chris O'Donnell, business manager for IATSE Local 481, which represents New England film and TV workers. He's in favor of making the credits permanent. And before we start, I should note some GBH projects benefit from these incentives as well. Chris and Senator, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks.
Glad to be here. Hi, Chris.
Let me start with you. Why should these be permanent, made permanent?
Well, look, the program has been working for the last 15 years, and it has done exactly what it is intended to do, which was to attract well over 270 productions, create thousands and thousands of jobs, and really encourage tens of millions of dollars of investment in businesses that now provide goods and services to the industry that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. And those businesses are ready to make the next level of investment. And they can't do that unless they have a good, solid runway to make those investments, whether it's in infrastructure or equipment or hire new workers. They're ready to do that. And for the workforce that I represent, there's a new period of growth that's going to happen in this industry. And to send the message to Hollywood and to the people who work here and the producers that are spending the money here that we're open for business for the long term will only encourage that growth even more.
Senator, as I mentioned a minute ago, the Senate is proposing a sunset and a narrowing of the criteria for eligibility. But Chris says the law is doing exactly what it was intended to do. Is it?
Well, the Senate's position, Jim, is not that there's no benefit. What we're struggling with is the cost-benefit trade-off. And we do have the data, which we didn't have before. We've got 11 years, 10 years of data, a good decade by which to evaluate these tax breaks. In 2016, Jim, there's quite a data lag. In 2016, the year most recently that we have, 277 net new jobs created for Massachusetts at a cost of, well, about $30 million in tax breaks. So $30 million in tax breaks, 277 FTEs, and this is in an economy that has 3.5 million total jobs. Last time I did the math, Jim, that's 0.0001% of the state economy, and we're forswearing quite a bit of money.
You know, it's not just Senator Barrett and his colleagues, Chris, as you know, something called the Tax Expenditure Revenue Commission, which is comprised of the head of the Department of Revenue, the auditor, the state treasurer, and some other legislative leaders, issued a determination on a whole bunch of tax credits, tax breaks in the state, and they concluded on this one that they strongly, somewhere between strongly and somewhat disagreed that the expense justified the cost. Plus, there's a guy who no one has ever accused of being anti-business, namely Charlie Baker, who isn't crazy about this thing either, Chris. Are they all wrong?
Yes. So let's first look at the Tax Expenditure Review Commission. So that data, as the senator correctly pointed out, is from a period of 2006 to 2016. They are acting on data that is 5 years old. And why is that significant? It's significant because something dramatic happened starting in 2017, 5 years ago, which is for the first time, Massachusetts saw episodic streaming series come to Massachusetts. And since then, we've seen 7 or 8 episodic series produced in Massachusetts. And the irony is that even the Tax Expenditure Review Commission and the Department of Revenue acknowledge the value of that type of production. Why? Because they employ more people, more local people, and they are the productions that generate the kind of job growth and the kind of investment in the industry that the state wants.
Chris, do you quarrel with the numbers that this credit, the creation of every job is costing taxpayers roughly $100,000? You don't buy
I do.
that?
You know, that number is based on old 5-year-old data from the Department of Revenue that grossly inflates the value of...
You don't think Governor Baker and the head of DOR and the treasurer and the auditor understand that 5 years has passed and that they should be judging this on the merits of today? Quickly, Chris.
They've chosen not to. They chose not to look at what happened in the last 5 years.
Michael Barrett, if I may, every single fellow Democrat, every single one in the House of Representatives, not to mention the 30 Republicans, every single one of them thought making this permanent was a good idea, essentially endorsing what Chris is saying here. Every one of them is wrong?
It's not a matter of wrong. Remember, the Senate's position, Jim, isn't that the other side is wrong. Our position is not that there's no benefit. What we've taken a look at is the cost-benefit trade-off, and it's horrible. So the issue here is, and here's the amazing thing about this is more than a tax break, Jim, as you know, this is unique. These tax credits, so-called, are refundable and transferable. So we're not talking about helping the arts write down their costs in Massachusetts. The movie folks who come into the state briefly have very little tax liability. What they get is a gift. We give them a tax credit that they turn around because they don't need it. They don't need it to lower their costs in Massachusetts. They turn around and they sell it to rich individual taxpayers who need it in order to reduce their liability for in-state taxes.
Senator Barrett,
it's the refundability and the transferability that's toxic.
Senator
and so
Barrett,
we're not trying to abolish something, we're trying to reform something.
But when you say it, you also have a sunset provision. As you know, I used to do a little tax work on Beacon Hill a century ago. Is there ever been a tax break that has been sunsetted that actually wasn't re-upped forever? Ever? Has there been one?
Well, you're talking to a guy who, yes, we've recommended in the Senate budget 3 tax breaks be terminated in this budget.
Have they been? No.
Really
I'm not asking recommendation. Has there ever been one terminated after a sunset provision rather than being extended?
Jim, you and I happen to be on the same page. I think every tax loophole, including this one, should be sunsetted. I agree with you. The lobbies are strong. They get entrenched. They push back effectively. I'm not giving up. I'm optimistic that people are getting sensitive to the loss of monies. This one is the worst. This one is the worst. 277 jobs. All the movie companies don't need the money, so they turn around and send it and sell the credits to billionaires. That transferability and refundability is one of the reforms the Senate's looked for.
Chris, without losing people in the weeds, because I only have 45 seconds left, even if you're right that they should be entitled to a credit because of the job creation and the trickle-down impact, why should they be able to sell these credits to wealthy taxpayers who can then use it to reduce their tax liability? And all I have is 30 seconds, unfortunately.
If you get rid of the transferability, you've gutted the program, because it's true. Much of the production companies may not have a tax liability in the state of Massachusetts. So if you don't make it transferable, then you've killed the program. The point that needs to be made is that this idea that the Senate budget is modest in how it changes the program is false.
Quickly.
I'll tell you.
No. Chris, finish the thought.
To continue the transferability.
15 seconds each. Chris first.
Their proposal will effectively kill the program because it will prevent larger productions from coming to Massachusetts, like series we've seen here in the last 5 years, like feature films, and those are the engines of growth.
Chris, I got to hold you. Mike Barrett, you have the last 10 seconds. Go.
Not at all. Listen, they're WGBH. You mentioned, Jim, in the beginning that you're the beneficiary of the credit. You're based in Massachusetts. We're doing nothing to alter that. You're going to remain here producing the programs, even if we curtail this credit a little bit along the margins. And by the way, we are talking about reform and not abolition. You cannot let multi-billionaires accept these credits and avoid paying Massachusetts taxes and argue that it's absolutely
Senator Barrett, Chris O'Donnell, this is actually very helpful to me.
Chris.
I hope to the people at home, and I hope we'll have a chance to continue it. Chris O'Donnell, Mike Barrett, thank you so much, both of you.